As they say in hockey, let's do that hockey.
Play a full 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Get pucks deep, putting the puck deep.
Put pucks in deep.
We got to keep it simple and just get pucks going forward.
Getting into the forecheck.
We got to keep playing aggressive.
Trying to take away their time and space.
We're focused on tonight. We just got to stick to our game.
225 dreams are set to come true here Friday as the NHL Draft is set to take place in Las Vegas. Welcome back to the Fifth Liners podcast, joined with Matt Leonardo and Nick Kozan. I'm Casey Ditzel, and upcoming here, we'll break down our favorite picks that we expect to see names called in the upcoming draft here for 2024. Which teams are prized to make the biggest moves, some trades that we might see. And we also have a special guest coming on. Christian Humphreys from the United States National Development Team joins the show before we close it out, breaking down our impressed and depressed with some of the moves we've seen teams make already to this point. And a new guest of the show here, Nick Kozan, the head of our blog, our head writer on the podcast, and now a voice of the podcast. Nick, what's going on? Short introduction of yourself before we get into it here.
Yeah. So I'm from New York. Obviously excited to be a part of it. Thanks, Casey, for having me on. Excited to show face behind the typewriting that I've been doing with the blog posts and just watching the Stanley Cup Finals. So a pleasure to be a part of it. Classmate of Casey as well, so happy to be on the Zoom call with him outside of a classroom. So looking forward to getting started and seeing where this goes.
The rare form where people choose to hop on a Zoom call with me, but hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun here. All right, guys, let's get right into the draft. And upcoming here, some teams that are slated to make the biggest impact. Teams with the most picks: Utah, the new Utah Hockey Club, taking over for the Arizona Coyotes, who are in all kinds of land battles. 13 picks for the Utah Hockey Club. Next is Montreal with 12. Philly has 10. Anaheim, Calgary, and San Jose with 9. Ottawa also has 9. And Chicago with 8 draft picks. Looking at the first rounders now, since the Allmark trade, Ottawa has added a third first-round pick. They are the most of any team in the first round, and a list of other teams that have 2 first-rounders: Anaheim, Calgary, Chicago, Philadelphia, San Jose. Guys, we'll start there with the first round, and the teams with the big draft lists this year. Who do we think we'll see make the biggest moves with the names that are going to get called here in just a few hours from when this podcast drops?
Yeah, Casey, you mentioned it first here with Utah having 13 picks and a team that's, has a brand new identity. I think it's a great opportunity for them to take a lot of swings, especially with 3 picks in the second round and 3 picks in the third round. That's kind of where you get that opportunity to get a really big impact player, and people will look back and be like, wow, that's been a really good draft for them. You think of a team like the Dallas Stars, who time in and time out are getting huge production out of their second and third round picks. So I think Utah is one of those teams to look out for to really take some chances on some guys later in the draft.
And with I would say with Montreal, with the GM that they have there, Kent Hughes, I think he's been making moves to slowly rebuild the team back to its form when they did end up in the Cup final. So it's great to see the moves that they're making and the amount of picks that they have. I think it's a huge destination for, NHL stars to go there. So the free agency frenzy that's upcoming, I think you'll see a few moves being made by Kent Hughes to hopefully jumpstart their future.
As Matt mentioned, a couple teams with 3 picks in the second round. Nashville with 3, Utah with 3. Utah also has 3 third-round picks, joined by Anaheim and the Washington Capitals. So those top 3 rounds, obviously the first round, the most important, and we're going to get into some of our favorite names. We've kind of broken down a combined compilation of who we think the top 10 to 12 picks are, and then we're going to go into some deeper picks that we are most excited about here. But pretty unanimously, the number 1 pick is headed to San Jose, and is just about confirmed that it's going to be Macklin Celebrini that Matt is going to be cheering for probably the next 25 years to come here. The center left-handed shot from Boston University. He lit it up, just the second freshman to become the Hobie Baker in the NCAA. And Matt, it's hard not to be excited about the talent coming with the #1 pick this year after Bedard went to Chicago last year and all the hype around him. No one was talking about how important Celebrini was going to be just 1 year later.
Exactly, Casey. And I think this is one of those situations where everyone's tanking for a reason. You think back to the draft in 2015 with Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel as the sweepstakes. I think you have a similar situation here with Macklin Celebrini at #1. One of the more complete NHL ready prospects we've seen in quite some time. I've heard a lot of people talk about how it's almost like he's more NHL ready than Bedard, which, hard to imagine somebody who came in and made such a huge impact for the Blackhawks, being able to do the same thing for the Sharks here. But watching him at Boston University, his game is absolutely complete. He makes an impact on both sides, and he just makes a huge impact anywhere he skates around. You think of guys like Nico Hischier and John Tavares as faces of the franchise, both wearing the C for their respective teams. I think you're going to see the C over on the San Jose Sharks jersey with Celebrini on the back in the near future.
At #2, we have Ivan Demidov, and out of St. Petersburg, guy who could go early, could go late, and there's been a lot of negative press around him, and a lot of the speculation is teams that are trying to get him tank down to them and try to discourage other teams from picking him. But a big body guy, he's already made his impact in the KHL out there in Russia. And Nick, a guy who it feels like is going to make a quick impact. They say he's ready to go right away, at least to make the move to the AHL, and we could be hearing that name quite frequently coming up soon.
Yeah, he's made a huge impact in his seasons with the MHL and partially with the KHL. His contract with them ends in 2025, but he really does have that Matvei Michkov effect and the Kaprizov-like skating. Watch out, Chicago. I think he's going to be carving up the ice, carving his way around the neutral zone, the offensive zone, and just getting pucks on net. He's dynamic. He's a dynamic forward, and that's exactly what Chicago needs to jumpstart their offense. Like we saw this past season with Bedard and how electric he's been. I think that's going to be a dynamic duo for years to come.
Scary thought that he might be joining the ranks of Connor Bedard and back-to-back top 2 picks for the Chicago Blackhawks with the talent that the young talent, at least, that has already just joined that roster. #3 out of Michigan State is Artem Leshinov. And Leshinov's already made a big impact at the NCAA level, which recently we've seen a big shift from the Canadian ranks to a lot of guys making the jump to NCAA straight into the NHL. The Big Ten Defensive Rookie of the Year and Big Ten Defenseman of the Year as well. And a lot of people comparing him to Mackenzie Weegar and Gus Forsling. Matt, we watch quite a bit of NCAA hockey, and Leshinov led this Michigan State team and obviously a top favorite to go early in this draft.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Big Ten Defenseman of the Year as a rookie is really impressive as a freshman there. The 6'2" right stick defenseman really just has a complete game on the back end. He does make some interesting decisions here and there and kind of makes the opportunity to join the rush pretty often. I think his skating really helps him get back in some of those instances, but he really drives some offense from the blue line, which is something that a lot of teams are going to be interested in, especially at his size. But it's tough to make that comparison of Weegar or Forsling. They kind of have separate games. But I think Leshinov kind of has a nice blend between the two, where he's not definitely a liability on the back end, but he's going to, definitely jump up on the rush and score a lot of goals, similar to what we saw with Weegar this past season.
Next is the first that we have out of the CHL and a WHL guy, left-handed shot center, and Caden Lindstrom, who's ranked as the top CHL draft prospect, play style similar to Brady Tkachuk and Quentin Byfield. And Nick, we see the Canadian leagues transfer to the NHL all the time. This is a guy that you have ranked very highly on your list.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer with the size and the playmaking ability that this guy has. He's the second most complete player behind Celebrini. It's really cut and dry as far as like looking at his highlights, what the scouts have been talking about him. I think it's a no-brainer that he goes in the top 10 or top 5, sorry. And he does have a heck of a shot. Just looking at what he has done in the WHL, just ripping goalies apart left and right every single game. That's why he's going in the top 5. And yeah.
Next, we have a run at D. And first, our number 5 pick from the KHL is Anton Silyev, in a big body that we've seen the transition go from where it seemed like it was going away from the big body guys and the hard fighting style of hockey. Now we see the recent Cup champions be bigger teams. This is a guy who's 6'7".
Yeah, you can thank guys like Owen Power for the rise of someone like Anton Silayev here. 6'7" defenseman and one of, if not the best skaters in the draft. All 4 directions. He can move around the ice really well. Almost reminds me more of a Bowen Byram, the way he's able to move around. Teams are going to be a little nervous about his offensive upside. He was playing in the KHL this year, getting 19, 20 minutes a night and really not putting up a lot of offensive production. I think early on in the year, we saw a little bit of a spark and it started to dwindle down towards the end of the season. But the upside there as a 6'7" guy who can build into that frame and skate so well, teams are going to be really excited about Silayev.
Number 6, we have a Memorial Cup champion out of Saginaw after a 96-point season in 66 games. Zane Parekh, another defenseman, Nick, this time a right-handed shot.
Yeah, led the Spirit to their first championship since moving to Saginaw. And he really has comparisons with Gostisbehere when he first came into the league. The way he's able to dictate the play and his puck handling ability is unmatched. Also remnants of Adam Fox with the New York Rangers, the way that he quarterbacks that power play and can make plays at the seat of his pants and see guys that no one else can. It's really remarkable what he has done this past year and how high he's going to go in this draft.
Sticking in the OHL, the London Knights and Sam Dickinson, left shot D, 70 points in 68 games this season for him and 13 points in the playoffs. En route to losing to Saginaw, but another guy who played in the Memorial Cup and an OHL champion. So for Dickinson, another D in our list of D that we expect to go top 10, and we have him ranked number 7.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of disparity in terms of which guy you rank between 1 and 5 on the defense list this year. But personally, I really like Sam Dickinson. I think for a team that's looking for somebody who's a little more NHL ready and has a little bit more of some traits that are going to translate to the next level right away, I think Sam Dickinson's your guy, right? He's got the size at 6'3". He can join the rush, but he's also got great vision and can stay back and really play that two-way game that you look for in the NHL. So I think a team that's up there at the top of the draft who's looking to kind of turn the switch quicker than others might really take a chance on Dickinson here.
Berkeley Catton, a center out of the WHL, playing with the Spokane Chiefs. He was the 3rd all-time highest power play goals per season out of the WHL, and just behind Connor Bedard at 2.25 power play goals per game for him. Also right up there with Sam Reinhart, and he was only 0.04 power play goals per game behind him. Center, again, with quite a bit of size, coming in at 163 pounds, but a guy with a lot of talent and certainly can make a spark here if he goes top 10.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot about Nikolai Evers with the Winnipeg Jets, the way he plays the strong side on the power play and the way he rounds up, taking the pass from the quarterback of the power play there and just takes it in. He has he's one of my favorite draft prospects in this draft, just because of the skill and the hockey IQ that he has. He is a little bit smaller in size. I think that's why he may fall out of the top 10, but I really like the Seattle Kraken taking him, or the Ottawa Senators. That's why I have him in the top 10, but easily one of the most skilled in the draft. And I mean, his stats speak wonders to what he's done.
The Kraken could add him right behind Matty Beniers, and similar to what Matt talked about with the Sharks, that could be a 1-2 center punch for quite a few years to come. Zeev Buium we have ranked at number 9, defending national champion as a freshman at Denver and a leader on their blue line, another left shot D, and out of the NCAA, playing in the western side of the NCAA where the physicality is big, similar play style to the NCAA, and a lot of the times that translates very well into the NHL.
Yeah, you see a lot of guys playing that physical hockey on the back end that are making an impact in the National Hockey League now. I think for me with Buium, it's one of those things where A, he's a winner, right? He won the World Juniors, he wins as a national champion, and B, just the ability to eat minutes up. I think it's a really underrated skill in the NHL for a guy to be able to go out there and play 24, 25 minutes a night. That's what you're going to get out of Zeev Buium. He's got great conditioning. He knows where he's supposed to be at the right time. There's nothing that really puts him over the top for me as a top pair defenseman, but if you need a guy who's going to eat 23, 24 minutes a night, I think Buium's a perfect fit for you.
Rounding out our top 10 is Konsta Helenius, and a guy who is looking to follow in the marks of the captain that just raised the Stanley Cup in Alexander Barkov. Helenius comes third all-time in Liga power play goals behind Barkov and Patrick Laine, 2 Finnish guys who have won a Stanley Cup, and one is expected to make a big impact in the trade market coming up this season. Also compared to another Finn, Sebastian Aho, who's a multiple-time NHL All-Star. So a lot of high praise coming for Helenius.
Yeah, he's already shown he can make an impact playing with and against the older competition in Liga. He is also one of the first players from Finland to ever play in the U18s, World Juniors, and the IIHF World Championship in the same season. His offensive skills and like strength with the puck are unmatched, and one of the best Finnish players in the entire draft.
TJ Ginla, a lot of questions around whether or not he'll fall far enough for the Calgary Flames to get him, and it would be exciting for Clarkson general manager Craig Conroy to have another Iginla. He is just 10 pounds and just 1 inch shorter than his father. Very similar play style coming out of Kelowna from the WHL. And guys, where do we see Iginla going here? We have him ranked at 11.
Yeah, and I honestly could boost him up a little higher here, personally. But I think with Iginla, that what you really like about him is his ability to create plays. You know, whether he's going to be a complementary piece on a first line, similar to what you see with a guy like Nico Rantanen to Nathan McKinnon, or somebody who's going to drive a second line, similar to what you see with Brad Marchand with the Boston Bruins this past season. TJ Ginla is going to drive the offense. He's able to make plays in so many different opportunities, whether it's from the shot or from the pass. And I think similar to his father, he's going to have a pretty steady NHL career in the top 6.
Cole Yzerman is my personal favorite in the draft. We have him ranked at number 12 overall, and I think he has a potential to make a career worth more than that ranking. Coming out of the United States National Development Team, and they play quite a bit against the USHL and the NCAA. He was close to 2 points per game. An elite goal scorer, broke Cole Caulfield's record playing with the NTDP, and a guy who could go right into any NHL offense and continue that production. And Yzerman at number 12, I think, is going to be an absolute steal.
Yeah, his offensive upside on what he has done with the puck speaks for itself. He is one-dimensional, and I think his college experience will get him to the next level and round out his game. That's one of the perks of going to college and spending the time there is to gain that experience and be well-rounded when you actually enter the league. So I think that's only going to speak volumes to this pick. I think it's going to be a high value pick, even at 12.
Yeah, Nick, and I think one thing I want to add on that as well, he's going to have the opportunity potentially to play with Macklin Celebrini at BU, so that's only going to elevate his game there. But also the fact that you look at a guy like Owen Tippett back in the draft a few years ago, where people really thought he was just going to be a one-dimensional prospect after getting drafted by the Panthers, really developed as a two-way player, and now he's making a huge impact with the Flyers. You could definitely see something similar happen here with Cole Eiserman.
Matt's already early calling that we're not going to see Celebrini in the NHL next year. I don't know about that one, but if Eiserman decides not to go straight to the NHL, he'll definitely maybe be another Hobie Baker push. And boy, that Hockey East Conference is loaded at the top in talent. A lot of them already drafted and many future ones to come for next season coming early in this draft. Those are our top 12, and now we'll shift it over to other guys that you like that maybe are not getting the top 15 attention that everyone says are the most important picks, but guys that could make a real splash in the later portion of the first round or into the second round here in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, Casey, I can start here with a couple guys that I really like a little further down the draft. We'll start with the former captain of the Windsor Spitfires, Liam Greentree. 90 points as the captain of the Spits. He really has one of the more complete games with some of the top IQ in this draft. I think the one knock that a lot of teams will have on him is his ability to skate, but I definitely think that's something that a team can develop. And after a few years, he'll be able to skate with some of those top NHL guys, and he has the skill to keep up with those players. So I think Greentree is somebody, if you're looking at a team who's maybe a couple years out, who has one of those second, first round picks that we mentioned earlier, a team like Montreal or Ottawa, I think it's a really good opportunity to get somebody like Greentree in there. And second here, another London Knight, we talked about Dickinson earlier, his teammate, Sam O'Reilly. He's one of those guys who's great in all situations and has a lot of NHL traits that you can see in his game. He's an aggressive forechecker. He's really good on the penalty kill, and he provides a little bit of offensive upside on power play too. You think of guys like Adam Henrique or Blake Coleman, who have a really good two-way game and are just steady NHLers that are going to have a long career just on their ability to play on both ends. I think you see somebody like Sam O'Reilly go later in the first round, maybe even in the second round, that gives the team a lot of value going into the future here.
Yeah, going off of what Matt said with Sam O'Reilly having like those NHL traits, I want to talk about Beckett Senek. So he's from Oshawa Generals, OHL. He could easily sneak into this top 12 that we just listed off, just due to his size, his 200-foot game, the ability to produce in all situations in the OHL. I think he's a no-brainer when it comes to like sleeper picks when you're looking at this draft. And another one I want to talk about is Michael Grenseg Nygaard. He is currently playing for Mora in Norway, and next year he's set for the SHL. He has like a Kachuk-like style, so he's all over the puck. He's tenacious. He's shooting everything in his sight, and I think a lot of fringe teams that are looking in that 15 to 18 range that are on the cusp of playoffs will take a look at him. Right now, the Detroit Red Wings have the 15th pick. I could easily see this with the history that they have with the SHL and the Swedish players that they brought through their system. I could see this easily happening for Eiserman and the entire Red Wings organization.
Already seen some big trades go down. Matt, you and I talked about on Wednesday's show some of the big ones that have already gone, and this is the time of year when trades start rifling off. And off of the Daily Faceoff, top 30 names expected to be trade targets, and list off some names here and then get your guys' take on some of the biggest that stand out to you. Mitch Marner from Toronto, Jacob Trouba from New York, Travis Konechny, Scott Lawton, and Cam Atkinson from Philadelphia, Martin Necas from Carolina, Jacob Chychrun from Ottawa, UC Saros from Nashville, the rights to Jake Gensel from Carolina. He's a UFA as of July 1, but the opportunity to sign him to a longer deal before that. Morgan Frost from Philadelphia, Elvis Merzlikins from Columbus, Jeff Skinner from Buffalo, Andrew Mangiapane from Calgary, Darnell Nurse from Edmonton, Trevor Zegras from Anaheim, Linus Allmark maybe again from Ottawa, and Logan Couture from San Jose. A lot of huge impact names, guys who play major roles in some of the teams listed there. Guys, out of those names, or if you have any other ones in your mind, what are the biggest that stand out to you?
Yeah, I'll go, Casey. So being a Toronto Maple Leafs fan myself, I have to pinpoint the Marner one. I know Brad Treliving has talked about his play and has sat down with Marner and likes how much of a player he is. So I'm not sure exactly where that's going to end up. I know that he said that they have a lot of moves to make this offseason to reshape that core for or deal one of them. I know that he is set for free agency in 2025 along with John Tavares. So it's going to be interesting what they want to do moving forward. I personally, if you're going to get a good deal for him, I think it's best to do it now versus when your back's against the wall. So that's what I think from that. He's been a hell of a player for the organization, so we'll see how it happens moving forward.
Yeah, and I think two guys that I kind of have my eyes on here, and for completely different reasons, honestly. First, talking about Trevor Zegras with the Ducks, I think the thing that really pinpoints this potential move here is the Ducks having the third overall pick and a very likely chance that Caden Lindstrom gets there. Pat Verbeek, as the GM, has been known to like big physical guys who are going to make an impact, especially up the middle at center. And you think of Trevor Zegras, you almost think of everything opposite, right? Flashy, skilled, very defensive liability on the back end almost. And I think injuries have really played a part in why Zegras hasn't really meshed in with this Anaheim core. So I could definitely see a team, like the Montreal Canadiens, like the Ottawa Senators, who need some center depth here, go after a guy like Zegras and, have Anaheim go in a different direction when you've got guys like Leo Carlson, you've got Cutter Gauthier, and adding potentially Caden Lindstrom to that list as well. And a second name, for a different reason here would be Cam Atkinson with the Flyers. Philadelphia is really tight against the cap, and they don't really have a lot of wiggle room to add some depth. They were a team that was right on the playoff fringe last year, and I think during our free agent frenzy, we'll kind of talk about this as well. But they're going to have to shake something up if they want this core to come back in a couple years from now with guys like Morgan Frost and Noah Cates. So I think if any guy is likely to move, it's probably Cam Atkinson. You look at some teams like San Jose and Chicago who have some cap space to take on that final year of Atkinson's deal. But personally, I would love to see a reunion in Columbus for Cam Atkinson and, being able to grab an asset from the Flyers there in exchange for taking on the salary of Cam Atkinson is something I could see a couple teams doing in the draft.
Martin Necas is an extremely interesting one to me, and it sounds like Carolina's pretty all in on parting ways with him. And we'll get to it in just a second. Nick, I'll let you break down one of the rumors that we're hearing today about a potential trade for him. But the thought of giving him away for just a draft pick boggles my mind, because he's going to be an outstanding talent for a long time to come. But it just didn't work out in Carolina. Jacob Chikrin on the back end, I think, is a good add. UC Saros, there's been all kinds of talk, and if Nashville's going to part ways with him, I wonder what they can get. And I've been pretty disappointed with the goalie market so far. I think both trades for goaltenders we've seen in the Markstrom deal, I don't know that Calgary got all they could have out of that one. And I was honestly baffled by the return that Boston got for Linus Allmark. I did not think that was enough at all for a guy who could be a long-term starter for Ottawa. So it'll be interesting to see if some of those goalies that are listed there, if they can get any return outside of just some first and second round draft picks. Jeff Skinner, it sounds like, is going to be a buyout. And by the time this airs, that might have already happened based on when we're recording here. but definitely, and it's very interesting to see these huge name guys that could be on the move, and I think that's what makes this free agency year so exciting here coming up. There's a lot of big name guys that are not going to be in the same homes, and based on the time running out here, we're getting pretty close to July 1st. A lot of those big name guys have not signed. You look at the entirety of the Florida Panthers offense and defense, all the big names that are out for UFA, not any as of Thursday here that have been announced. So there's going to be a lot of work to do for a lot of these GMs coming up in free agency. Nick, I'll hand it over to you, and back on the Natchez front. We've heard the Devils looking to move up and potentially trade the number 10 overall for Natchez. I don't know that that's enough, and I'll get your take to start there, or if they'd have to throw something else in. But how about some other teams maybe we'll see moving around, trying to move up using some trade capital?
Yeah, the Devils are an interesting one. After a depressing season, obviously missing the playoffs, dealing with all the injuries that they had, you got to think that there's got to be more on the table for someone like Martin Necas. It can't just be 10th overall, especially to a divisional rival. You don't want to be playing Martin Necas when you're on the cusp of playoffs, right? So I think there's going to be a lot more on the table. There's going to be other teams that are interested in someone that's, I mean, just coming off of a 53-point season and 71 the prior year. You got to think there's more. And the Devils, I think trading that 10th overall pick, regardless of who's on the other side of it, I think is a smart move, because you just got number one goaltender in Markstrom. I think you're built for the playoffs right now. You can retool otherwise, whether that be Martin Necas or someone else. I think it's the right move for them and the right move for this draft that's upcoming.
Scary thought, thinking of how well Dougie Hamilton, outside of the injuries, has worked out for the Devils blue line, and adding another top-notch Hurricane in conference is pretty terrifying going into next season. That'll do it here for the first segment, and we're going to bring on now Christian Humphreys as our second guest to the Fifth Liners podcast, a guy we have high hopes coming up for in the NHL draft, and then we'll be back to close it down, breaking down some other NHL news, looking at the NHL award winners and the Hall of Fame inductions before we finish it off with our impressed and depressed on the NHL signings to this point. You're listening to the Fifth Liners podcast. Back in a moment. Very excited to welcome on Christian Humphreys, who's getting ready to have his name called in the upcoming NHL draft here this weekend. Christian, first off, thanks for joining us here. What's going on? You're out on vacation at your beach house right now. What are you spending the summer doing, preparing for the upcoming season?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm just basically trying to look forward to next season, obviously. This weekend's going to be super excited. So I'm looking forward to it a lot, but still training as hard as I can for next season.
Growing up, what first got you into hockey?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously my older brother, he would always play a bunch, and my mom took me to a rink whenever I was 2 years old, and usually you're crying to get off the ice, and my mom said I was crying when she took me off the ice. So I think whenever I'm at that young of age, I think it kind of just picked up, and I loved it so much.
Family's been a big part of your development. Talk about how important your brothers and your family have been towards getting you to this point in your career.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ups and downs, and so there's someone that I can go toward whenever I want. I think just every step of the way they've been with me, whether it's the decisions I've made or what I've wanted to do. So they've been so supportive to me.
You talked on the NHL Network about the impact of your brother who was born with disability and overcame cancer. My sister has special needs and Down syndrome, and listening to you talk about that was pretty cool. So kind of wanted to bring that up here as well. Your brother plays sled hockey now and overcame a lot of what doctors said that he wouldn't be able to do. Talk about growing up with him, your relationship with him, and how you've been able to take inspiration from your brother's story towards your own career.
Yeah, I think for me, I think I just look at him every day and he puts a smile on my face, and he's overcame so much and he wants to be a normal kid like us. So I love giving back to him. I love whatever he does. I mean, he's just so fortunate to be at the spot where he is now. And it's awesome. Whenever I'm on a sled with him, he'll skate circles around me. So just knowing how gifted I am and lucky just to do what I love every single day. And he's just such an inspiration to me, and I couldn't ask for a better brother for sure.
So Christian, Casey and I got to see you play this year at Clarkson in an exhibition game with your USA NTDP team. So walk us through what a day in the life is like at the development program.
Yeah, I can go off the Clarkson trip. So we played St. Lawrence the night before, and we were in the same hotel. It's obviously super close. So you'll wake up around 8 o'clock. You'll go to team breakfast, and then we'll go on a team walk or wherever. We'll walk a mile or two, and then a bunch of guys love to nap, but maybe I'll get on it this year. I don't like napping, so I'll hop on like a Netflix show or sit with my buddy, and we'll just talk about the game or watch video for the game. And then you have your pregame meal around 3 o'clock. So you get a lot of downtime, which is really nice. And then if it's a 7 o'clock game, you're doing 4:15 pre-scout. And then we actually leave late. We leave at like 4:45. We only show up 2 hours before away game. So and obviously you warm up and do all the stuff and get ready. So it's not that complicated, but it worked for a good amount of time.
What about when you're back in Michigan, the normal day-to-day of like a practice schedule?
Yeah, for us it was a lot. Obviously, with schooling was probably one of the best aspects for us. I think that you do 8 to 9:30 school, and you'd be done. And then we had 10 early graduates, so we had a bunch of guys done in January. So you're not doing school hours, so you're really just focusing on hockey, and that's probably the biggest outcome that you get to be a pro. And I think for us, it was so easy to do everything. And after school, you'd get changed in your gitch. We'd have 9:45 warm up, and then you'd be on ice if you had skills around 10:30 to 11, and then practice speed from 11 to 1. And then we work out from 1:30 to around 3 o'clock. So it's a long day for sure, but it was super beneficial to all of us.
Heard it compared to like a military style regiment, and obviously it works. The program's pumped out a long list of top ranked NHL stars year after year. Who are some of the guys that have come from the USA team that you've looked up to most as you've grown up playing?
Yeah, I think for me, I think probably just the Hughes brothers. And I think obviously Jim's my agent, so I think that he's done just a great job. And I think that everything they do, obviously they went to Michigan, obviously besides Jack, but I think just the legacy that they have, it's kind of hard to beat. And obviously 4 boys in our family, so they have 3, so it's kind of close. So obviously they've done a great job.
What are the emotions like being able to suit up every time you guys go to play a game wearing the red, white, and blue jersey?
Yeah, I think that'd probably be one of our biggest things. I think that the first time you throw it on, you can't really put into words. Obviously, you're representing your country, and it's a lot bigger than just hockey. So we try to put on the best face that we can every day, and it was great just to be able to have the 2 years to do that. And I think looking back at it, there's not a moment that one of us is going to regret for sure.
Every player on that team is committed to go D1 next year, and some might be heading straight to the NHL. Who have some of your favorite teammates been to play alongside, and who are some of the guys that you think will make a big splash in the coming years with you in the NHL?
I think for me, my best friend was James Higgins there, so we have a lot of similarities, and I think that he's just done a fantastic job, and he represents himself on and off the ice, and he's someone that we all look up to. I think he's just not only an unbelievable player, just a great person to be around. I think for the NHL draft, I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to fly under the radar. And I think you're going to be surprised with what Teddy Stiga is going to do. So he's going to be a great hockey player. And obviously, whatever number he gets picked, it's just a number, and he's going to prove it.
I've got the line chart from when we played you guys here, and at that point you had 31 points in just 23 games played, and continued on a pretty good pace throughout the season. Talk about your performance and what the development team specifically to you has been able to develop most in your game.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I mean, we're all a bunch of 18-year-olds playing against, our first college game was Western, you're playing against 27-year-olds. So I think that probably just that mature aspect of the game. I think, we're young pros at that point, and whether it's playing in a sold out North Dakota rink or even in Clarkson, I think, that was probably one of the most fun games of the year. And I think just all aspects of us, and always being the young guys wherever we go, I think that just carrying ourselves that way is pretty big for sure.
I played in our Clarkson alumni game this past weekend, and I can hardly skate. So going from playing against 60-year-olds in beer league to the jump of playing against some guys that are in the ECHL right now was pretty astounding. So I can't imagine the benefit that gives you guys. Looking back on your time with the development program now that you'll be on your way out here, what are going to be some of the favorite memories that you'll take away from your time with the U.S. national team?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's not like juniors. I mean, you're with the guys for 2 years, no matter what. And I think you get so close with them, and we'll still talk about it. Like, man, like even like last week, I was on the phone with Whips, and he's like, "Man, I miss the guys. Like, I wish we could just be together." And I think that's probably one of the biggest part. You get so close with the guys from 17th year to 18th year, and they truly are like a family. And whenever we leave, obviously, it's probably one of the worst parts ever. So I think probably just the connections that'll for sure be one of the biggest parts that I'll miss for sure.
So next year you will head to the University of Michigan, which was my top school before choosing to stay at Clarkson. When did you decide? When did you decide that was the right fit for you to continue your career going to the NCAA and staying in Michigan?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, just the history they have, and everything that they've done. And I had my spring term last or 2 weeks ago, and I was there for 2 weeks. And I just think the culture there is something that you can't even put into words. I think the guys are just so close, and your hockey value on ice has nothing to do with off ice, and some teams it does. And I think it's just unbelievable the guys and coaches and just everything they have there. It's something that you can't really put into words for sure. And from the hockey aspect, they play really big offense, and they like scoring goals. So I think it was just kind of a no-brainer for me for sure.
Somehow the trip up Route 11 didn't change many of the guys in red, white, and blue's decision to commit to the green and gold, but you'll go to Michigan next year. What are you most excited about as you get ready for next year playing college hockey? You guys have already gotten a taste of it, as you mentioned there, but now every single weekend playing in the NCAA.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we had 16 games, so obviously it's a big difference. But obviously, just to get your foot in the door and kind of get that first nerve out of it, like you've already been there, so it definitely helps a lot for sure. And I just think playing a college style schedule, you're playing for your school now, and I think that's obviously probably one of the coolest traditions ever. And I think we're just really excited, all of us are. And I know looking back in a couple of years now, we're gonna all not want to be there anymore. So it's gonna be awesome for sure.
Similar to development program, Michigan's been home to a long list of NHL stars, on top of being on top of the national rankings pretty frequently. Talk about the thought next year of possibly playing in front of a sold out crowd in the Frozen Four. What do you imagine that being like?
Yeah, I think for us, I would say nervous, but I think we've played in so many big crowds that it's definitely going to be a lot easier. But obviously, when you're playing for a Frozen Four, it's going to be tough for sure. And I think just knowing that, if you lose this game, you're packing your bags and going home. So I think that'd probably be the biggest aspect of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if we do it again this year.
You've scored a lot of goals, including in the IAHFs. What goal so far to this point in your career, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty in the league that are going to be way more special than that, but to this point, what goal would you say you look back on as the most memorable?
I'd say probably one of the coolest was probably honestly U17 year playing in the World Challenge. We were playing Sweden to go undefeated in the bracket, and gave us a first round bye. And there was probably like end of the second, starting the third tie hockey game. It was 2-2, and lucky enough to get one on the power play. And I think that was probably one of the coolest goals in a while, because obviously whenever you're playing international hockey, like I said, it's a complete different stage and you can't really put in words for sure. But that one was definitely out there.
This week, your name is expected to be one of the top called. You're ranked as high as the low 30s for top prospects coming up. Are you going to be making the trip out to Las Vegas here to step up on the stage when that happens?
Yeah, I'm not sure right now. I think for me, I think it's just gonna be a great day with my family, and I think that's probably the most important part. They've done so much for me, and I really couldn't thank them much more. And I think for me, just I'm trying to get back to the basics, and obviously for me, it's a number. If I go second round, that's great. If I go in the fifth round, it's great. I think for me, just proving what I have to prove next year. So obviously, I'm gonna be looking forward to the day and spending it with my family, and yeah, I can't wait to get it started.
So what will it mean to you and your family when your name gets called this weekend?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's just they've done so much for me ever since I was a little kid. And I think it's going to mean a lot to my brother James for sure. I think just him being by my side and kind of just getting to relate stuff with him. And he's always looked up to me as a big support. So I like to show it as much as I can to him. And it would be a fun day for sure.
When in your career did this become a reality that you were someday going to be an NHL draft pick?
I think for me, I think I've never really thought of it like that. I think that obviously I knew I had a little more skill than other people. And at the end of the day, I really think it's not a job. I think it's I love it. So I think it's just, some guys will get sick of it and some guys just love it as a passion. So I make jokes all the time. I think I could play till I'm 40. So I think it's just I have that drive that other kids don't. And I'm lucky to be born with it for sure.
Your family's got some ties with Kearney, so if you decide to keep playing after 40, I'll have a beer league spot on my roster for you. We could use some
Yeah.
NHL talent.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it there.
Growing up, who's a player that you really liked watching, that you admired, that you think someday you hope to model your game after, or maybe be compared to by the NHL scouts?
Yeah, I mean, a no-brainer would be Crosby, but obviously I looked up to him. But if I'm being realistic, that I come out of my game after, I'd probably say Jordan Eberle. I think that ever since he got traded to Seattle, he's been unbelievable, so dynamic, so offensive, and I just think that everything that he's done and gone through, I think he's been lights out. And funny thing is, whenever we're both on 2-on-1s, he's always looking at the net, but he knows he's going to pass it. And it's almost like the same thing that we do. So that was kind of the first thing that I noticed. I'm like, maybe this is my player. Like, so yeah, probably am.
Growing up, you have been a big Pittsburgh Penguins fan. What would it mean to you if you end up getting drafted by your hometown team?
Yeah, I think that probably I couldn't really put in the words. I think that obviously playing in the Pens program for 5 years and just being a Pittsburgh kid going to games growing up, and I think it'd probably be a dream come true. And obviously, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, great. I'll still love them. They'll still be my favorite team. So I think just basically just living a childhood dream for sure.
Now and out there to the hockey gods, the Pittsburgh Penguins have 2 second-round draft picks, so we'll wait and see. That's one that we're rooting for as well. Last one for you here, and again, we really appreciate the time you've taken with us. growing up as a kid, and think back to the times when you're out on the ODRs or when you're playing with your buddies in the front yard in the driveway. What was your biggest dream growing up as a kid in hockey? When you're playing in those big games against your buddies 2-on-2 and you're scoring that game-winning goal, what were you playing for?
I think for me, whenever I'm playing, I just like to win. So whether it's like a backyard or ODR game, whenever you score that game winner, obviously you're gonna go crazy. And I think just, you have those childhood dreams of, man, like I wish I could score a game 7 winner or something like that, or I wish I could win the U18 World Championship, which obviously is kind of sucks as we fell up short. But I just think, that's where, you're hanging out with your buddies, you're having a good time, and you don't really put that in reality until it happens. So I think I'm kind of just looking forward to it.
Christian, thanks so much for the time. Looking forward to hearing your name called coming up here, and 20 plus years down the road after your 40th birthday and the retirement announcement, I'll have the contract ready to sign up for the adult hockey league team. Good luck this weekend. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Casey. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Christian.
Big thanks to Christian for hopping on, and we're wishing him the best of luck. Certainly have our eyes peeled on when Humphreys will be going, a prospect coming to Michigan in the NCAA next year out of the USNTDP, in a program that has been budding stars since its existence. Just about. The Hockey Hall of Fame has added 7 names: Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Colin Campbell, David Poyle, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell-Pohl, and Shea Weber are all Hall of Famers now, and one of those names is hanging in the background of 1/3 of the frames on camera right now. Matt Datsyuk, a guy that you're super stoked to see in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's one of those guys where you think back in the driveway, you're trying to pull off some just ridiculous moves that you'll never be able to actually do, and you're screaming Datsuk's name almost like Kobe in the NBA. Just an unbelievably skilled player, and for not too long of a longevity, he had 12, 13 seasons in the league, but unbelievably consistent near a point per game. A guy who everyone loved in Detroit, and around the league, everyone really admired the way he played and the skill that he brought to the league. You think of guys like Trevor Zegras and Sonny Milano with those kind of fun plays. That all starts with Pavel Datsyuk. So really excited to see him in the Hall of Fame here, especially with the rest of the class that we've got coming in. So very excited for everyone, and congratulations.
We're going to close off the episode with our impressed and depressed. And this episode is going to be NHL signings, going on some of the ones we've seen so far pre-draft, and expect maybe a couple more as the draft moves on. Some guys could get their rights signed to other teams. Vancouver was the first to make a big splash this offseason, and it's Filip Hronek on an 8-year, $7.25 million deal. A deal right now worth quite a bit of money, but as the salary cap continues to increase, that might not be the same in 8 years from now, Nick. But Filip Hronek, a guy who had a great season for Vancouver and gets paid out. Are you impressed or depressed with the deal?
I am impressed with the deal because Quinn Hughes still has his right-hand man, his D partner, and Filip Hronek coming off of his best season to date. He's still a young NHL player in this league. I think the best is yet to come. He manned the power play. He has one of the hardest shots in the NHL, and really Quinn Hughes thrived with him in the lineup. I think throughout the entire season, he started off very hot in the beginning of the season, the 2023-2024. A little slower towards the latter half, but he was a prominent role. He was their number one right-handed defenseman all throughout the season. I personally like this deal moving forward, especially as you mentioned with the cap trending upwards.
Jalen Chatfield signed by Carolina, a 3-year, $3 million deal, and this seems like an extremely home-friendly discount for the Carolina Hurricanes. Chatfield, a guy I expect to easily bump into the top 4, and a team that really rolls all 6 of their defense, but especially this year where the free agency could be detrimental to a team that had probably the number 1 ranked defense going into this season. Pesce gets hurt in the playoffs, and the Rangers are able to bounce him in the second round. So I think Chatfield on a $3 million deal is a great start to trying to get that D-core back, and something they pride themselves on so hard in being difficult to play is the defense of Rod Brindamore. Chatfield's a great addition, a guy with a lot of speed, a guy that comes and brings the physicality, a guy who brings a lot of work ethic. He's been around the league, had to fight for his spot. He was an AHL guy for a while, finally broke in, then finds a place in Carolina where he's been so important to the success of that team. They bring him back, and $3 million is an absolute steal. I was blown away, impressed by Jalen Chatfield. Kaapo Kakko, signed by the New York Rangers. This is a prove-it deal, 1 year at $2.4 million. Kakko, a guy who was expected to not be dressing in blue next year. They're able to get him back. It's a 1 year, low term, Matt. Impressed or depressed here by the Rangers?
Yeah, overall, I would say I'm a little depressed on this sign here by the Rangers. And like you'd mentioned before, I'm still not 100% sold we see Kaapo Kakko playing for the New York Rangers next year. You know, this is a very easy deal to move if you're the New York Rangers. You have his RFA, right? So you don't just want to lose him for free. But I think for the former number 2 overall pick, you know, somebody who wasn't really slotted into the lineup that often during the playoffs, he doesn't really offer you much as a bottom 6 forward. He has a little bit of two-way game here and there, but it's not something that I think for $2.4 million is going to help what the Rangers specifically are looking for. I think their top 6 is pretty much solidified for next season. I think they could bring in, you know, one more potential scorer on the power play. And what does that leave for a role for Kaapo Kakko, who you try and develop year in and year out by sheltering his minutes and giving him no power play time. You know, you saw with Alexi Lafreniere until they gave him that opportunity this past season. I think the similar thing's going to happen this year for Kaapo Kakko if he hasn't moved on this 1 year deal. So for me, I think the Rangers had better uses of that $2.4 million to spend on a couple of different depth pieces. So for me, I would say it's a little bit depressed on this deal.
Staying in New York and right onto the island, Kyle McLean signed to a 3-year, $775,000 deal. And again, a deal that feels like an absolute steal for McLean, who played a major impact in the playoffs, maybe not as much in the regular season, but proved that he can come up in the big time. McLean is going to be around for a while, and that is essentially nothing to pay him. That's the minimum deal for the NHL at $775. They get him on a one-way for 3 years. I like the deal for the Islanders there. Go across the water here and down to New Jersey. Curtis McDermott and the Matt Rempe effect showing on the Devils. They brought him in for some physicality and mostly just to fight the Rempire State Building. They now sign him to a 3 times $1.15 million deal, Matt. Impressed or depressed here, keeping McDermott around for the Devils?
I'm going to say impressed. I think the physicality there is something that you really cherish. It's a contract at 1.15 that you can bury the entire salary in the AHL. You know, McDermott's not going to bring much, if any, skill into the lineup, but they did trade Kevin Ball in the deal to grab Jacob Markstrom. So, you know, that big size defenseman is lacking on the back end there for the Devils. And I think McDermott kind of fills that role. And like you said, he's out there to fight. He's out there to make a presence. And I think, you know, you look back at the Ryan Reeves deal, almost $2 million there. You don't love that signing as much based on the amount of money it was. But I think for 1.15, I'm impressed with this deal for the New Jersey Devils.
Columbus signs Igor Chinnikov to a 2-year, $4.2 million deal. A young guy who had spurts of greatness throughout the season. Don Waddell's first signing as the new general manager down in Columbus. I'm not necessarily impressed or depressed by this one, but I think I'm going to side on the error of a little bit too much money here. Not that it matters too much for Columbus. I don't think they're going to be pressuring anytime soon to make the playoffs right away, or at least contend in the playoffs. $4.2 million deal isn't going to kill the bank. But Chinnikov's a young guy. I think if anything, if you were going to keep that number, I would have liked to see it maybe a little longer term. And for Chinnikov, he gets away with a great deal here where in 2 years, if he continues the trend of improvement that we've seen over his NHL career here early in his young years, he could be primed to make a lot of money come, what would that be, the 2026 UFA season. Colorado making some noise. Casey Middlestat will stick around. They traded for Middlestat. He was a huge impact in the success of the first round before all of the locker room troubles that knocked them out in the second round. But Middlestat will stay 3 years at $5.75 million and also 2 years of arbitration rights for the Colorado Avalanche. Nick, impressed or depressed on the Middlestat signing?
Yeah, I'm slightly impressed. He hasn't had the most impressive of seasons. First coming into the league, yet again, he is still 25 and has room of growth. The past few seasons, he's had upwards of 59 and 57 points, about 116 in the last 160 games, which is really good. Colorado finally solves their second line center problem. I think that they can shy away from the critics this summer when talking about that and looking for a free agent when they have one right under their nose. I think he's been incredible since joining the Colorado Avalanche, taking his experience and his performance from the Sabres. He has room of growth, and I think Colorado Avalanche and Joe Sakic believe in him. And I think that's something that the Minnesota native has needed in his NHL career, and he's finally gotten it.
Winnipeg is keeping Dylan DeMello around in slightly long term, 4 years times $4.9 million for the defenseman. Matt, impressed or depressed on Dylan DeMello?
I'm impressed here. I think Dylan DeMello is a guy who's going to eat up 20 minutes a night on the right side. You look back at last year's free agency, and a guy like Eric Goodbranson got $4 million from Columbus. You look at a guy like Jeff Petrie, who got a lot of money. You look at a guy like Ben Sherratt, who got a lot of money. $4.9 million is not much for a guy who's shown that he can really play at the NHL level. He's not going to be a top pair guy on the right side, especially with somebody like Neil Pionk in front of him, who's gotten some criticism here and there from Winnipeg. But I think he fits that system really well. He knows the system. And he's just an overall solid defenseman. So I think the term is okay. I think the money is okay. So personally, I think Winnipeg's in a good spot here, moving towards the right direction of building from the back end and starting to fill up on the front side with some different guys later on. So personally, I'm impressed with the DeMello signing.
Last one, Pittsburgh signs Alex Nedeljkovic to a 2-year, $5 million deal. And I took some heat in episode 1 for my take on signing goalies to big money deals. This isn't a long-term deal at just 2 years, but some of the decisions on Kyle Dubas's end since taking over the GM role there have been a bit baffling to me, and not necessarily to the Nedeljkovic one. I think Nedeljkovic is a 1A goalie for the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially in the system with the signing of Jari, but 5 years times the amount of money that Tristan Jari, I believe it's a little over $5 million for him per year. And he is injury prone. He's not a starter at the moment. A name that we didn't bring up, but could be a trade target for the Penguins to try to get rid of. They bring Alex Nedeljkovic in. The only problem I have with this here is now you have 2 goaltenders at $5 million. You're eating 10 of cap on your goaltending situation. It might just be because the Carolina fan in me has been spoiled the last couple of years, where Freddie Anderson's only at $3.2 million as the number one. Ranta, with the exception of the month that he got waived and had some struggles there, is a $1 million guy that's been good enough to be a backup, and Pyotr Kochetkov is on a 2-way deal. And for me, that would be my ideal system, is the guys that are good enough and build around it. I like the way Carolina's system with the defense and the hard grinding style works. Obviously, it hasn't gotten them to the Cup final, so maybe the $10 million that Bobrovsky gets paid is worth it, as he's the one lifting the cup. But for me, I'm not impressed or depressed. I'm just shaking my head at the Penguins management for another big goaltending deal. And I think if they can't get rid of Jari here, I don't see any future for the Pittsburgh Penguins just because of some of the places their cap is stuck and some of the older guys on that roster as well. But that is it for now, and we expect plenty to come here with the NHL Draft coming up. The draft starts tonight as this episode comes out on Friday, the 28th, and we're extremely excited to watch as Christian Humphreys, his U.S. teammates, and all of the other 18-year-old guys look to start their dreams to the NHL. Matt, you got a big vacation coming up. What's in store for the next week here? We won't be hearing your voice upcoming on the free agency episode, it doesn't sound like.
Yeah, unfortunately, unless you try and do a little time zone difference, I might be out in Europe for the week. So just enjoying the week off and taking some vacation time to go and reset here over the summer, similar to most of the NHL guys. Except personally, my 9 to 5 is not playing hockey, maybe one day, but highly unlikely. So yeah, pretty excited for that little vacation and disappointed to not be able to chat through some of my favorite teams in free agency and kind of what direction I see them going. But I'm sure the people on hand are going to be more than prepared to give you guys everything you need to know.
The guy works referee games every night, but he's still dreaming of being a player in the NHL. Nick, how about you? What's going on down Route 11?
Oh, the same. You know it. Good old Potsdam. The bars buzzing over here. But no, looking forward to free agency, seeing what the Leafs have in store. Being a Leafs fan myself, seeing what moves they make and seeing what happens with the core four, and what the summer brings upcoming with the newish GM now, with Brad Treliving running the table there. And yeah, we'll see how everything shakes out.
We got treated with the Stanley Cup going 7 games and the travel schedule that took us all the way to this week. It's draft time now, and upcoming on Monday will be our free agency frenzy super show, as we're going to break down all of the UFAs, RFAs, potential signings that we want to see through all 32 teams, what went wrong, what needs to happen, and more coming up. That'll be Monday, and a busy week here for the Fifth Liners. 3 episodes in just about 5 days for us here, but having a blast with it. Guys, thanks for joining along, and looking forward to Matt the next time we get to have you on. Nick, we'll see you in a couple days here. This has been another episode of the Fifth Liners podcast. 3 episodes down, plenty more to come. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify if you're enjoying the content here. It helps us continue to bring breaking news and all the headlines to you as we look forward to the upcoming summer here. See you next time.